We'll let everybody know that in addition to the meeting being recorded as we usually do, we're trying something a little bit different. We've done this at our a couple of our board meetings so far. The meeting is live on YouTube. Anybody who follows MAPPA on social media can check out the meeting on YouTube now. I don't know that we'll have very many viewers, but it is on there.
Might be a record setting, you never know.
That's right. Might go
It's a
live.
nice way for a lot of people to start their weekends.
That's right.
Hey, Friday morning at 10, tune into the TTAC.
Yeah.
Oh, you're gonna have to say like and subscribe.
Okay.
So often. Yeah, that's your new duty.
Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and get the meeting started then. I guess the first thing we'll do is just go around the room and introduce ourselves and the agency that you represent. Mr. Rogers, would you like to start that off?
Sure, I'll rather see one.
Forest City, Nebraska Department of Roads, District 2.
I'm good, Moran, DOT District 2.
Damian Stern in DOT District 2. Derek Miller, City of Omaha. Carlos Morales, Napa.
Carrie Neighbors, Omaha Metro.
Douglas County. Brian Guy, City of Omaha. John Crager, City of Bellevue.
Pat Dallas, Little Folks. Eric Williams, NRD. Blaine Mappa.
Court Barber, MAPPA.
Laura Heilman, Napa.
I've Maldonado Metro Transit.
Matt Cox, Council of Public Works. Lee Myers, AARP.
And there's a lady back in the corner.
Chris Walsner, City of Omaha. It's
Thank you, Krista. All right, that's everybody who's in the room. So for those of you online, if you would like to introduce yourselves, this would be a good time for that.
Hi, this is Mike Helgerson from MAPPA.
Hi, this is Daniel Wynn from FTA Region 7.
Jeff Subject, City of Omaha.
This is Kristen Broyhill, Chamber of Commerce.
Greg Perry, City of Gretna.
Is there anyone else online? For those of you on Facebook, please hit the like and subscribe button.
This is Chris Longabos.
Okay, let's move on to the first action item, that being the approval of the minutes from the September 22nd meeting. We do have a quorum today. So is there any discussion on approval of those minutes, or do we have a motion to approve?
I will move to approve.
We have a motion from Todd. Second? Second. Guys, second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Let's move into the MAPPA's Board of Director recommendation with item B, and my bank will present those minutes. This does include a change to the project sponsored by the DOT, City of Omaha, Gretna, and Bellevue.
Yep, so funny,
Just a sec here, I'm trying to bring it up on here, it's taking a second to load. Nobody on call. We don't see any.
Let's stop the meeting. We have a new attendee. Would you like to introduce yourself, sir? Who you might be with?
Mike Kleffner, City of Pavilion.
Fantastic. We have Mike Kleffner from City of Pavilion join the meeting.
All right, go ahead and proceed.
all right, so two main funding increases, one from NDOT for their Skyline Drive project, and also from Gretna with the Gretna to Span Trail, which had a funding increase going from.
I'd like to make a note on that, the Gretna to Span Trail cost increase. That does come with a favorable recommendation from the TTAC committee. It was reviewed by them. The project cost increased fairly significantly. The construction cost went up. What was the total? From about 174,000 to 336,000. So it was a fairly substantial increase as far as percentage of the project. So we took that back to the TTAC. Proceed, sir.
And it's someone from Gretna. I heard someone from Gretna online. If you want to say anything else about it, you're welcome to.
No, basically, we're when this was originally started, we didn't had a very, very loose scope, and now we've started to nail down what the scope will be for the project, and that's starting to drive all of the costs and the details for that.
Thank you.
So next up are funding source changes from NDOT. We had a funding source change for fiscal year 2024 construction from an HPP to STP. Otherwise, funding amounts remain the same. For phase adjustments, we had an H amount from NDOT, also just pushing projects back a couple years for construction. Across the board pretty much, with a couple from the NRD for both the Sourcen Trail, 72nd Street Underpass and the West Papio Trail. Phase adjustments back about 1 year for construction. And P, but depending on this. We also, for Omaha, had the Midtown Medical Center connection bikeway, also had a phase adjustments. Right, yeah, back. Besides that, we also had a new project, which is NDOT, their US 6 Harrison Street to Dog Street project, which was basically separating a previous Nebraska project that went along from Harrison Street to Dog Street. They sort of broke down to both a Sarpy County and a Douglas County section, basically with a 22861 and a 22861A. We had a project description update for Carter Lake, basically to update the project map and IOT's TPMS software. And then we had a bunch of NDOT projects removed because they're already obligated in the previous fiscal year.
So a large portion of the amendment is some changes to NDOT projects, because at the end of the federal fiscal year, they basically go through and clean up and make sure that the state tip is aligned with our tip as far as the projects that are in the region, because there's a number of projects that they'll put in the previous year's tip and the new tip in order to make sure that they hit basically cover their bases if they don't hit a letting date in the previous federal fiscal year. That's where a lot of the changes are.
For that Harrison Street to Dodge Street, there is some sort of city participation with that. I don't know if that's worth noting in that description.
We'll make a note of it, and then if we aren't capturing that, we'll double check with NDO with Jamie and make sure that we're showing that correctly.
Okay, there, that would be handled with agreements anyway, but it's essentially from Blue Sage Parkway to Dodge.
Okay, yeah, we'll make sure that that's captured in there so that that's we don't have to do this again.
We have motions.
Yeah. I'll make it. So, okay, we got a motion from Mike Kleckner. Is there a second?
Second.
Pat, all those in favor? Aye. Those opposed, same sign. Item C is the approval of the tip selection policy guide. So Court is going to present that on the guide and application. Well, project. Court.
Yep, thank you. All right, so just to give a little bit of background, we've been talking about this since I want to say late spring, early summer. We're intending to open a call for projects at the end of October. We've gone through kind of a process of setting priorities with this group, as well as the selection committee, ProScott and TAPC. We kind of went through a pretty substantial series of edits to the way that we score projects and everything like that compared to what we've done in the past. So there will be a single policy guide, and that will be one guide for all 4 of the programs that you can apply for: surface transportation block grants, transportation alternatives, carbon reduction, and then the Heartland 2050 mini grants. There will be 2 applications. Oh, I apologize. There will be 3 applications. When I was doing this, I wasn't entirely thinking about the Heartland 2050 mini grants. That would be a separate application. But as far as the kind of the larger programs go, there will be 2 applications, one for STBG and then another one for TAP and CRP. Then there will be a 3rd application for the mini grants, and that application hasn't really changed. We'll be asking the same questions that we have in the past. And we might we're going to go through and kind of clean it up and make sure that everything is is clear in that application, but it'll just be a refresh. It won't be kind of a total overhaul like it is for SDBG and TAP. And then for CRP, this is the first time we've done a selection for CRP. It's our newest funding source, initiated with IIJA back in November of 2021. I wanted to make a note about planning studies. So we noticed that we were kind of testing the scoring, and when we were talking to PROSCOM about it, that planning studies don't really do very well in the criteria that we have set up. It's more for infrastructure projects. So the intention and kind of the way we talked about this with PROSCOM is that if you're applying for planning funding, if you want to do a study with STBG, it won't be directly compared to the infrastructure projects. We don't want to create a hard set aside for planning. We'll just basically come up with that during the PROSCOM meeting or meetings in the springtime. So we'll kind of evaluate the planning studies on their own merit, and then kind of decide on how much we want to spend as a region for planning studies. And there's just a very brief section in the policy guide about that. So for project scoring, there were rubrics handed out, and I'll bring those up. I think, I guess it kind of depends on how deep in the discussion we end up getting. But to give you just a broad understanding of how we're going to score projects, there will be 6 basically priority areas: safety, demand, asset condition, regional considerations, emissions and air quality, and leverage. Each one of those will have its own 100 points. And then the entire application will also be out of 100 points. So each of those sections is going to be weighted, and I'll get into the weighting in a moment. We went through some exercises with TTAC back in July to help us determine this. And then we went through those same exercises again in more depth with PROSCOM and TAC. So and the rubrics sort of show this. So if you grab the rubric from over on the table, you can kind of see how it falls out. Basically, like take safety, for example, you can get 100 points within safety. And then for STBG, safety is weighted at 30%. So basically those 100 points turn into 30 points for the whole application. Within safety, there's different metrics for how we measure the safety of a project, and each of those is weighted as well. And those were, we went through all of those and determined those weights with PROSCOM and TTAC. So we set these priorities back in, or we started setting them back in July, and that basically presented them, asked for feedback on how they should be weighted and how they should be integrated into the project selection. One of them came out, and that's that equity and environmental justice piece. PROSCOM made the recommendation to remove that as its own priority area and place it under each of the different priorities. So there's equity scoring within each of these priority areas instead of it being its own standalone area. It just seemed to make more sense to fit in that way. So based on this, we took all of this to both PROSCOM and TAC, and we made some adjustments and kind of straightened things out so that it goes by fives. This is how things laid out for SDBG, safety being the top priority, followed by demand, then asset condition, then regional considerations, and emissions about the same, with leverage coming in at the bottom. So that basically means that out of the 100-point application, a maximum of 30 points to safety, 25 to demand, and so that's basically how that works out. For TAP, they made some other adjustments. They kicked safety up a little bit more, and they ended up putting demand and regional considerations ahead of asset condition, and then they also moved leverage up above the emissions and air quality piece. For carbon reduction program, they felt that the emissions and air quality piece was the most important when it came to that program, so that ends up taking the top spot just above safety. And then after that, they kind of let things fall in, with asset condition being the least important in this in this program, partly because it's a new program and a lot of the eligible activities, especially when you think of like, alternative fuel infrastructure, there's not a lot of that in the region to evaluate anyway, so it's, they kind of lead on the emissions and air quality, followed by safety and demand as the most important pieces. For Harvard 2050 mini grants, it didn't have its own policy guide in the past, but the whole policy was basically baked into the application. You read through the policy as you went through the application form. This year, since I was unifying the other three programs, I went ahead and threw the mini grants into its own section. I just basically copied what we had in the application and dropped it in there. The guidance is mostly unchanged. Scoring hasn't changed. An important piece for TTAC is at the December meeting, we're going to ask you to nominate 2 people to send to the review committee for the Article 2050 mini grants. So there'll be 2 members of TTAC, 2 members of RTAC, the Regional Planning Advisory Committee, and just a member of MAPA staff. And that would be the group that determines how we spend the mini grant funding. In the past, I believe, I don't think we've ever rejected a mini grant application. They've always been approved, so it's a pretty low key committee, I guess you might say. But we will be asking for some volunteers. You're welcome to nominate anybody you want from the committee, but that'll come in December. I think that's what I had on the actual application. Most of them, all of the scoring criteria and the policy guide, those went out with the packet. And then anybody who's in the room, you've got access to the rubric over there. I can spend time going through the rubric if that would be of benefit. But I guess I'd like to just stop talking and ask if there's any questions right off the bat of the presentation.
I'll make a comment, Court, for those that are not on the pros con committee. There was a comment made earlier and on one of the early slides in this part of the presentation regarding planning studies. And we talked at great length about whether or not we should carve out a certain amount of money for our planning studies because they don't tend to score high. And then we went back several years and looked at the planning studies that have been applied for, and literally every one of them have been given funding. So we kind of felt like that the system, the way it is today, allows for discussion, allows for those people that are presenting these planning studies to talk about it, to discuss why they're important for this group to discuss those types of things. And it's been a successful program the way it is. And so that's why the decision was sort of made to leave it the way it is and move forward with that. So at that meeting, I think, if I remember right, I think we went over by about 20 minutes. That pros con meeting was very productive. There was a lot of great discussion from everybody in attendance. And I just wanted to give a little bit more information on the planning study decision for those of you that weren't there. Are there any other questions anybody'd like to continue the discussion?
I make a motion.
Mike must be in a hurry today.
So, Court, during the discussion, we talked about increase in funding. Do you have any additional thoughts about projects that are currently funded but have potential cost increase as to whether they will be kind of administratively approved for cost increase, brought to TTAC for cost increase review or reapplication?
Right. So one of the things that I actually added, and this went out to TAC in like its own little document. And that was something that we still wanted to get more input from the TAP committee on. I actually wrote up a little piece specifically about TAP projects that is in the policy guide, the draft right now, that basically says if it's, I don't remember if we said it at 250,000 or 500. I think we actually asked, that was a question that we had, was how, like what the amount should be that we want to take back to the TAP committee. So the issue is basically that there's not a whole lot of TAP funding each year. It's about 2.1 million in Nebraska and 250,000 in Iowa for the region. And the threshold for an amendment right now is 2 million. And that basically, so if there was an amendment to a TAP project where the cost was going up by 1.9 million, it could just be administratively approved and moved forward. That could have a pretty significant impact on the TAP funding. So we wanted to, TAP committee was interested in kind of setting a threshold. And basically what we said in there was the TAP committee, upon setting that threshold, anything that would hit that threshold would go over it. The TAP committee would make a recommendation to either just go ahead and just do it. You can just do it administratively, or make a recommendation that project go back through the project selection process, or make a recommendation that it not receive an increase in funding, and a recommendation that they not reapply because the committee doesn't feel like they would actually succeed. So that was kind of how we set that up. So I would still like to get kind of a final word from TAPC before this goes to our board, but that is in there.
Okay, so then if this is recommended and approved now, you still need additional input from the members in order to finalize that before it goes to the board that I'm hearing.
Yes and no. I would like to have some final input from TAPC. My intention was to basically send out an email and just to follow up and see if I can get some TAPC input on that. But I don't necessarily have to have it.
Okay. So those of us who were in that committee, please keep that in mind, that some additional input would be helpful to clarify. And from our earlier action, the Gretna project was one example that we did decide to make a recommendation for the Gretna project cost increase without asking for a reapplication or any other changes. And so, just an example that the threshold there, because the threshold is also 2 million for other SDBG projects, right? And 2 million in SDBG would not eat up basically an entire year of SDBG, so it's less of a risk. But in TAP, it would eat up all of the funding for a year. So that's what we're talking about a little bit more. But so TAP team members, if you can provide feedback to court on that before we get the final to the MAP board, that would be helpful. And I think I am also one of those who needs to respond to the request that court sent out. Let's look at that so we can make sure and get a clear guidance on that before the final.
I would appreciate that. Yes.
Great, thanks.
Yep.
I think we have a motion on this from Mike Buckner. Is there a second? So is there any other questions? I'll say. Second, Austin. All those in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Same sign. Okay. So we're on to the Baltic project court by Leah.
So this is basically very related to item C. Item B is mostly focused on the schedule. So in addition to approving the policy guide, we're asking for a recommendation to officially open the call for projects. And the plan is to open the call on October 30th. Applications will be due January 12th. There will be project selection meetings with PROSCOM and TAPC, and the Carbon 2050 mini grant committee will meet sometime March and April with awards coming out in July of 2024 after our board approves the 2025 transportation improvement program. So this is the plan currently. If your jurisdiction is not planning on applying, you're welcome to say that, and we're not going to force a meeting on you or anything like that. But if you have even mild interest, we would love to talk to you about what you're thinking about doing. We want to make the call for projects as successful as we can. That's basically it. We'll end up with about. Well, I don't think I have the exact numbers for each program in each state. But as far as SDBG goes, when we get out into 2029, 2030, there's a significant pool of money. I want to say it's something around 30 million. So assuming that we don't have significant cost increases or too significant cost increases on any projects in the existing program, there should be a decent pool of funds. And for the carbon reduction program, that hasn't been touched yet, and we get about 2.1 million a year right now in that. And we have 2 million or 2 years built up for that on the Nebraska side, and then on the Iowa side, same deal, but it's about 250,000 on the Iowa side. The amount for CRP is about the same as it is for TAP. With that, we're just asking for a recommendation to the board to open the call. I'll make a recommendation.
Second. Those in favor? Any opposed? Okay. That wraps up our action items. So we'll move into the discussion item E, Carlos Court. Talk about the balances and federal funding for the regional enforcement programs.
So we're gonna try out a couple new things this year. We're gonna come at this meeting and to this group. And I think this has been done before, but we're gonna bring in the previous year's finance or the previous quarter's financial information as we know it best from the reporting from the state. Give everyone a heads up, hey, once a quarter, we're gonna have these discussions about how the money is being programmed or what programming year and what projects we really care about in this year one, the implementation year. So we're in fiscal year 2024. We just started fiscal year 24. Last year's numbers look really good. We had an apportionment, how much we were given in Iowa of 2 million and about 18 million in Nebraska. The total balance for the prior year was 19 million in Iowa, 7 million in Nebraska. What we were able to obligate through September 30th on the Iowa side, close to 6.5 million, and on the Nebraska side, 23 million. So good job. Our final balance as of right now from previous years is 2 million in Nebraska and about 14.9 million in Iowa. So the 2024 project, and I'll let the court talk through these. These are the program funds that we have for this fiscal year 2024. This is what we know as they are right now in terms of what project phase they're going to be trying to obligate this year. So our check-ins are going to be kind of very pointed in trying to find out, is this going to let this year? This is our biggest requirement. If by February, we don't know if something's going to let in this fiscal year, we would like to know so that we can readjust and switch out the phasing. But that's the biggest thing that we're going to try to do. And court has additional information on year one projects.
So as far as I'm aware, looking at TPMS, South Expressway Phase 2 looks like it's on track. Matt, is that accurate? It's not. Oh, okay. Okay, so that will probably slide in 25.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you think it will slide past 25? Not sure yet. I mean, it's enough to know that it's going to slide. Okay. All right. So that's probably the slide. And then for 36th Street Phase 2, my understanding, talking to Bellevue, is that should be on track for this year.
That's correct.
And then beyond that, there's not a whole lot of heavy construction. One question I did have was about that roundabout program. And I don't know if Krista or Austin, if you know exactly where, if you're going to be moving forward with that this year. We don't have, the SDBG commitment is not very high in that, but I know it's like, the idea is it's kind of a larger, like, citywide program. And I don't know exactly if you were,
was that about the study of the two roundabouts up in Cornwall, 36th?
So when the city applied for it, the way that it came in was that the intention was to use that to get started on like the preliminary phases for like actually doing the work around the city. Like the way I understood it was sort of like, just in my conception, it was kind of like a signal system project where there was an idea that you had a whole bunch of signals that you wanted to upgrade, didn't know exactly what you were going to do when you applied, but it was going to be multiple locations around the city, and that this would kind of like kick that off.
I think my understanding of it, and Krista or else chime in differently, but I think this was to leverage HSIP funding for roundabout construction. So HSIP won't fund
Preliminary
PE, NEPA. So
Yeah.
this would take care of those phases.
Yes.
And then that roundabout would be applied for through HSIP and hopefully be awarded funding. If not, I guess I'm not sure what the alternative is, but I think this was kind of a standing. Hopefully, a standing commitment for MAPPA to look at. Several, one or a handful of locations on an annual basis to advance those to.
Right.
The.
Yes. But up to this point, I haven't actually seen whether that was moving forward. And I guess that was my main question.
Yeah, we'll get some more details on that.
Okay.
Jack or Chris, right.
Okay, yeah, that works. Yeah.
And you mentioned those two on now or there. I think those are the next two in the pipeline.
Okay, yeah. And then the other three pieces are studies, and I'm pretty sure that the first two, the Urban Core Two-Way and West Maple, those are moving forward already. I think some of the funding is actually obligated for those already. And then the Beltline Trail, Field Club Trail Connection Study is, that was the Heartland 2050 mini grant award. And I believe that that's moving forward. I don't know if Derek, y'all plan on doing that this year, like within 2024?
I would have to check that with Kevin.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's fine. But so that's kind of the outlay for STBG in 2024. We'll make the adjustment on the South Expressway reconstruction phase 2. But other than that, and then further coordination with the City of Omaha. This is something that, like Carlos said, it's kind of a new thing that we want to do. We're going to do this quarterly. So effectively, as we get quarterly reports in from state DOTs on that kind of what's been obligated and everything, we'll be presenting this to make sure that we're keeping everybody up to date on our both fiscal constraint as well as checking in on project status.
Can I ask, sorry, Omaha on West Maple Road corridor study, that's from 680 west all the way to Elkhorn, is that all right? Yes. Okay, and then is there a timeline on, it's started now, but do you have an anticipated timeline on when that study work will be completed?
I would anticipate majority of the work taking place sometime next year.
Great, appreciate it, thanks.
You have a consultant selected for that yet? Austin?
Any other questions on STPG? All right. We'll move into TAP. Go on the TAP front. And I didn't update the slide. So we serendipitously got the Iowa numbers just earlier this morning. We were very appreciative to get the Iowa balances for the year end. So please ignore that it simply says Nebraska at the top for the year end. We do have Iowa in there now. Apportionments for TAP funding, we get about 250,000 on the Iowa side and 2.2 million on the Nebraska side. We had a bit of a balance on each side, 1.4 in Iowa and 2.2 million in Nebraska. Nothing moved forward in Iowa this year. There are two fairly significant projects that are supposed to be letting within 2024 that will hit the balance pretty hard. So that balance won't last on the Iowa side. On the Nebraska side, we obligated 2.8 million. We've got about 1.6 left in there. So on the Iowa side, we've got Carter Lakes walking and biking trail at 320,000. The Council Bluffs City County Connector Trail went up significantly. That was in a TIP amendment last year, and it's sitting at 1.3 million. And Potawatomi County Multi-Use Trail Phase 1 at 238,000. That one has been, it's been kind of like moving forward. My understanding is that the county's been trying to put together a funding package for it, and this is only part of it, because we can only actually fund a small piece of this connection, because most of the county is not in the transportation management area. It's not governed by the MPO. So we can only fund a small section of it, and they're trying to put together a package within the rest of the county to actually finish that trail. And my understanding is that they haven't quite done that. So that's why that keeps moving forward each year. But it seemed like there was some movement on it earlier last year, but I still don't have an exact idea of whether that's going to go 2024. Gretna, the Wearspan Trail, that was in the TIP amendment earlier today. It had a fairly significant cost increase on it. My understanding is that they're just about ready to go with that project. I don't remember if, my understanding is that they might be ready to construct in 2024. I don't know if that is certain, but I know that they've been actually asking to move the project forward, so we've got it programmed in 2024 right now, but we will want to work with Gretna and NDOT to make sure that we've got that aligned properly.
Is Gretna still on the phone?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Greg, were you there?
Yeah, Court, they haven't even started design yet, so I doubt, I think it was programmed for an FY26 construction initially.
We got an updated form from NDOT. And it suggested that they were thinking that it would move up. But if that's not the case, we'll make that adjustment, and I think that's fine.
Yeah, no, I think it can move up, as it hasn't moved, the process hasn't caught up to where they're wanting it to be yet, let's put it that way.
Okay, well, yeah, maybe we'll get together and talk about exactly how we want that to run. Because I think that there is funding available to make it happen before 26 at this point. But, you know, if you can't do it in 24, maybe we'll slide it into 25.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate being able to have these conversations. I think that was kind of the idea of putting this on the agenda and showcasing it. This is great. And the last item is the Omaha Midtown Medical Center Bikeway connection. So this was a project that was awarded some regional SDPG funding, or I'm sorry, not SDPG, TAP funding in the last call for projects that we did. And then they managed to get a much larger award in the state TAP competition. So they expanded the project. We've got the full description in there now. It was part of this TIP amendment where we kind of fleshed out the whole project and everything like that. But my understanding is that should be going, it should be starting the federal aid process this fiscal year. So they'll probably be obligating close to $1 million for doing the preliminary phases. And I don't actually remember if construction is planned for 25 or 26, but it's a couple of years out, I guess is the best way to say it. But that's it on tap.
Time permitting, we're gonna do member agency updates, and I think we got plenty of time, given that it's only 10:38. So I'll move into that. Austin, you want me to start with you or on the other side of the room?
Yeah. We've got our AC servicing package, it's going well. We're gonna wrap up this fall, and it's soon be on task, on schedule with that. 108th Street, we did have an initial utility delay, we get the start of that, and try to get that done in 2 seasons, we're not quite gonna get there. That will extend another year. 156th Street, we're still on track for spring coming forward, and that project opened up, that's between Dodge and Pacific. 168 from Center to Q is on track in fall of 24. 42nd Street Bridge is looking really good, that's a very near opening, getting to the final stages, just attaching some of the furnace and whatnots on that. The baby Bob is kicking off really in earnest next week. I think it's some activity that's already started there, but that's the project is getting ready to go. And
Awesome. Fantastic. You got a list?
Yes, I got one. Start down south, 75 Murray Plaza. Right now, we've got all the new southbound lanes, the main line anyway. And there's only a gap in it at the railroad bridge. But paving is from one end to the other now. So they're catching up with turn lanes and things like that now. So they're moving along. Highway 75 and 34, the bridges, Bellevue bridges. All the bridge work is done. Right now, they're doing some pavement grinding and they still have to replace some expansion joints on the Platte River Bridge and that permit striker. And that should be done maybe next week. Yeah, okay. Then we'll take the 55-mile-an-hour side off. 480 bridges, 20th Missouri River. That's still on hold. All the work is completed. They still have to put up the overhead sign structure. But, you know, that probably won't work till spring. We have to close the whole thing down for some days, and we don't want to get caught in the winter, which had to close. Maple Street, Elkhorn River East, that's the 10-inch down pavement. All the old pavement's gone. The traffic is head to head in the westbound lanes. The removals are completed and they're now working on the subgrade tree again. I-680 from I-80 to Fort, that's the joint sealing night work. That's 82% completed, so moving along on that. I-80 eastbound at 680, the high friction surfacing, that's 98% complete. I think the only thing they have left to do is a little permanent striping. The accident investigation sites, 72nd, 60th, 84th, Giles, they're all done. And they've actually got the erosion control. The last one is 13th Street westbound off Ramsey's Ford, and they were shouldering yesterday. And they'll put down the erosion control. The only thing left will be some striping, signage, but everything is poured. Highway 36 from 133 east to 48. All that contract work is done. Right now, they're working on a farm field entrance that got, I don't know what's called, overlooked. And they're working on that right now. That shouldn't be too much. We're not bothering traffic though. Highway 75 southbound from 480 to Chandler, that's done. That was the middle overlay. Kennedy Freeway northbound from Q to F. That is 95% complete. The only thing we have left to do there is permanent striping. North Freeway, Hamilton to Ames. See, Parker Street's still closed and diverting traffic. Lake Street, the south half of the bridge is completed. They moved traffic onto it. They're working on the north half. They poured the approaches. We were doing that yesterday. Pavement repaired northbound and southbound down on 75 itself. That's the pavement repair is done. And they build an overlay northbound from Pratt to Fort. That's done. Now we're doing painting. They finished the Vinnie and Lake Street bridges. They finished painting those. They moved the operation to northbound 75 at Bristol and Pratt. So they'll be moving, shifting traffic around as they get done and move across the bridge. And that's all. The only other thing is Highway 50 from 370 to Industrial Road that starts April 1st. So avoid Millers.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun.
We're done with all of our construction for the most part for this year. UMass has done that kind of thing. We're 370, we're moving into the next phase of preliminary design for the underpass there. The 90th Street, we're looking at doing a widening project with the SAE there. Hopefully that lets within the next month or so. We've got a few trim lanes we're adding around that area on the 84th and 370. We're finalizing the design on those right now. Hopefully those will be led in the next month or so.
Is that making that intersection dual left, Mike? Is that what it is, or you add? Right?
Well, there's some confusion with the engineer on that one. I'm letting DOT and engineer fight that one out. The original studies that there's supposed to be dual lefts there. I guess the more recent studies said no, so I don't think that Gene sent an email and I need to get more information on that. There's some confusion on the submittals. The 6th Street / Cornhusker Road project, 72nd and 84th. We finally got the contract through on that with NDOT, and we were going to do on-call selection, but most of the engineers are capped out with the environmental, so we're going to go through an RFP for that whole section. So that's pretty much covered what I've got.
Thank you. You have anything? No, condition. Okay, we are Still pouring, still working on our projects. I got a couple of pours next week, trying to have them done by the end of October. We got bad weather coming. It sounds like we've had one heck of a time with utilities, and we have a couple of projects because of those utility delays that it looks like we're gonna have to rock some of those short, small segments until next spring and come back and do them then. FYI for this group, we are tracking all additional expenses incurred by this utility mess that we're in. Mostly the fiber companies, and we are going to go after them for changes in cost. It's gonna costing us a bunch of extra money because of them, and we're gonna see what we can do with it. So I'll keep you posted.
But mostly fiber companies, other utilities involved also, or just?
There's always other utilities involved. I mean, we got MED involved, but the fiber companies without question have been our baby this summer.
And shops, I'll control them.
Yeah. Really struggle with them. It's been a challenge.
I'll just mention, we have City of Omaha has a RFP on the street for establishing a new list of on-call consultants for the signal system plan and operations. So that was posted Wednesday. This was due in a few weeks, so if there's any consultants listening, I guess take note. And hopefully this on-call will be the last one that gets to the finish line. So the end is slowly getting closer to this.
There's consultant listing, might hit the like and subscribe button. Right, Brian, trying to give them a leg up. Just a couple of projects that have already been mentioned, but for Bridge, the Pell State. Our acute short listing is on November 8th with interviews on 29th. Then the 36th Street Phase 2. It's 95% design. We are doing land acquisitions. There's one condemnation, unfortunately. We think that right now, letting possibly in May with an August, September construction start. Just give you a few things.
Where is phase 2? That makes sense.
It goes from Sheridan to Plaquemine.
Further south.
Yeah, it's same situation. We'll just kind of wrapping up a lot of the work we have. We had a fair package of overlays and UBAS as well, setting up for next year. UBAS and overlays will kind of be centralized around with middle school, that neighborhood there in July. Applewood Creek Trail is going through the closeout paperwork, for lack of a better term. It did receive an award for ABWA Project of the Year for structures under $5 million. So I appreciate the help of MAPA and DOT on that project. It's been a success, got some good publicity through the local news channels as well. 84th Street Trail working through NEPA and PD on that. And I think that's the bulk of it here. East Vista project still going on. We're not doing the most of the sewer work. It's probably 60% done the sewer work. We did not do any overlay paving this year for the fact we've got a couple of major reconstructions within a couple of those phases, and we wanted to keep the truck traffic off, and so we're going to wait till next year to overlay that to get a better service life for the neighborhood. So that's all. And then 84th Street, the development down there, got some traction. Appreciate Omaha traffic for the help with the signals on there. We've had about 5 concerts and about 5,000 or 6,000 people down there so far. So far so good. So really appreciate all the interagency help with that one. All I got.
Yep, the Platte River Bridge Trail was awarded to Hawkins. They requested a change in the kind of on-site work beginning from October and was accepted to begin on February 1st. They'll be purchasing material to get them on site. So there wasn't really a lot of work anticipated over the winter. This doesn't expect a significant change in the final completion date. It's still the same working days and everything. So that project still anticipated for completion in the later part of 2024. Elkhorn River Trail Bridge awarded state cap funding, the NRD approved program agreement. We are using the NDOT on-call, and we are in the process of negotiation for PE and NEPA services. So I hope to have those finalized, approved before the end of the year and getting started on that project. when we have the scope and the fee for the consultants on that one, the entity anticipates discussion with other adjacent jurisdictions about an interlocal requesting some participation toward the local contribution. We anticipate talking with Douglas County, City of Omaha for the area close to Elkhorn, the Village of Waterloo, City of Valley, and everybody in the area would benefit from the connection along the West Maple corridor to talk about through the Western Douglas County Collaborative with Amendment. And we are open to participation at whatever level is available from the other partners, but we want to have a better idea of the potential cost before we begin that discussion about your local. The entity will still administer everything and be responsible for the entire local contribution, but similar to the Flat River Bridge Trail, again, we would appreciate some participation just to demonstrate support for the project from other local jurisdictions who are close to the area. So we'll be in touch over the next couple of months as we get move forward with that. And then from the NEAT study, which was a Heartland 2050 mini grant, the entity has contracted for the Applewood Creek connection from the south portion of the existing trail down to West Papio Trail. So just reminded that the conceptual study work that was done with federal funding is now translating into short connections being prioritized and moved into design and then construction. So glad to have that one moving forward and appreciate the partnership from Blaine and La Vista because it's in both jurisdictions. We have plans to send over for input 30% preliminary stuff, but I just want to make sure we're all on the same page about where that stuff's going. That's it for now.
Okay. So you guys don't have any-
I don't know. Kristen, do you have anything else from that?
Yeah, I do. So upcoming projects that we're working on getting bid at 48th Street, starting construction next year. 72nd Bridge, which is 2-year construction, and then F Street. And then a couple projects that we're working on, starting up design, both our major federal funded projects. And admin with the race grant project, the state mobility recovery plan. We'll be doing an RFP for that one. And then a separate RFP will go out for the Midtown medical bikeway that was on even as well. And then a couple major things, standard specs. Comment period will be coming out sometime in November. We'll have about a month comment period, and so we'll be looking for people's comments to be able to get those addressed and hopefully get an approved spec update done in 2024. And then we did roll out eBuilder. We're still working through some kinks. So please bear with us, but we're going to be starting to use eBuilder on all design projects and select construction projects.
Chris, a quick question on the design specs. With the new ProWag requirements, are those kind of integrated with it?
They will not be yet
Oh,
because
okay.
we are going to be doing one big separate update for ProWag because we don't want to rush it. And it hasn't officially been approved. And they said it could be approved with changes. So there's some nuances there, but we want to make sure people completely understand what the differences are based on the new ProWag guidance. And not get it lost in all the other updates.
Yes, the vendor side, we have a lot of projects going on. We're looking at hearing 26 buses by the end of this year. Usually it's going to take close to 3 years to build. We said a year and a half. They're doing a bus stop audit and inventory, looking at bus stop amenities that we had it from a safety perspective, ADA compliance and that sort of thing came up. We're about to release an RFP for the 24th Street corridor forward study and a whole other bunch of projects that we're working on to get our facilities and operations moving forward.
Are there? Matt, you're this way? Oh, sorry. I'm sorry.
Behind me. South Expressway phase 1 is wrapping up in the next couple of weeks. I think the only remaining paving was trail work. And then our Stephen Road project
It's a lot of dirt work, we've got some 40, 50 foot fill sections, so that will probably sit for the winter and maybe next year.
I'm ready.
We opened up our last piece of segment 4 this week, which would have been I-29 south to 480 westbound. So segment 4 essentially is complete. We are working on Madison Avenue currently, and that'll be going on for another couple of years. Question for you, Todd, or anybody else in the room. Do you guys have like utility conferences for utility companies, like in the winter months?
Utility conferences or utility meetings?
Utility meetings, either one.
The metro area has is it quarterly or monthly division utility? Monthly. And we have that everybody's invited to. It goes on at MVP.
So we have,
Yes, most of them.
in the districts, there's 6 districts in the state of Iowa, we have district utility meetings every year, usually during the winter months where everybody can attend. We hand the 5-year program along with the MP projects, 3R projects. So that, and we do it every year, so they're at least aware that there's work or activity going to be taking place. It helps a little bit. I'm not saying, you know, we're doing great things by getting utilities in and out. But at least you have a little, at least I feel like you have a little bit of a hold on them because you've done this for 5 years. Or you had the opportunity to know this for 5 years. You've had every chance to get in and get your utilities relocated. I just was throwing that out there. I didn't know if you guys did it on the Nebraska side or not. But
Yeah, and it gives them a chance to budget
right.
the year in advance, so it gives them a heads up.
Our utility group's kind of gotten on board recently. We've had some district utility meetings within the last month individually across the district that HDR. But our utility group's kind of jumping on board with this kind of coordination. We haven't been up until now.
When I used to be on the construction side, this is kind of interesting story. We're having a pre-construction meeting and Mid-American Energy, which was a utility, needed to relocate the electricity so that they could go build these box homes. And it was a young guy, fresh out of the army, really gung ho, and he was saying, well, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. Contract says, I'm gonna tell you right now, we're starting here in 2 weeks. If they're not moved, I'll move them for you. And they got
like that approach.
and they got moved.
Yeah.
So that's all I have.
You know everything? Anybody else with
I think we have final additional business and the map of prerogative. Yeah, which is basically, I have a couple of notes. We didn't really have that nothing, but our couple of notes were thanks everyone that showed up to the innovative finance meeting and our council of officials later that night. Long day. I think I took away a lot out of that innovative finance and trying to figure out how to finance future projects with Garvey, TIFIA, and other funding sources. I think my big takeaway was really trying to diversify the funding streams to allow additional projects to go forward before they get kind of impacted with these construction increases. Trying to get through that is kind of interesting, and seeing how construction has been in the last couple of years. It's really kind of important and it behooves us to talk through and understand this a little bit more and work with the state on some of these projects. So thank you all who showed up. We're currently in the process of reviewing RFQs for our Safe Streets for All. Again, this is a regional safety study to complete a comprehensive safety action plan with the eventual goal of allowing local entities to apply for additional safety funds in the future. So that is super exciting. And then last but not least, I gotta mention the FHWA training opportunity. So it's a 2-day full day sessions on ADA and laws, regulations, ped ramps, curb ramps, et cetera, et cetera. If you want to be included in this, or if you understand some staff that could benefit from this kind of training, please contact Lindsay Button at lbutton@mapacog.org. We'll get you on the list. Should be good. I believe, the agenda will be coming out in a couple weeks. The number of seats has increased from 25 for MAPPA to about 40 from, the MAPPA area. So, you know, if you would like your staff to get trained on this, let us know. And we'll look for other beneficial trainings and opportunities. With that, can you do?
Is there any other additional business? If not, we'll be looking for
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
motion second. Okay. All those in favor? Aye. And those opposed may stay as long as you want.